Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you are an entrepreneur. Yes, page and stage come together in entrepreneurship. And you may be thinking, what? Well, page. Maybe you've got a contributory book out. Maybe you have a solo book out. Maybe you have a regular blog. But if you're an entrepreneur, you've got socials, haven't you? And what's that if it's not published work? Those of you who are in a corporate sphere, though, do you do much talking about your work in amongst your colleagues? Do you write things down? Are there communiques going backwards and forwards? I bet there are. And you've still got to message it, haven't you? So we have a page. What about the stage then? A lot of people say to me, oh, I can't do the public speaking thing. My question is, if you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, those people will say they can, then you can do a podcast, just like we're doing now. That's also a stage. It doesn't have to be a live raised platform with a microphone and going all rah, rah, rah. That's not you. Don't make it you. Anyway, so page, stage, entrepreneurship, and also within corporate as well, there is an important element of the communication. That said, I love to introduce you to a lovely gentleman who is sitting on the other side of the Pacific to me at the moment. I'm in Mexico and Tony is in Sydney. Have I got that right? Sydney or Melbourne?
Melbourne.
Sorry. Audience, if you're not familiar with the rivalry between Melbourne and Sydney, I have just made the ultimate faux pas. Apologies. Okay, Tony, you are sitting there in Melbourne. I know about that much about you because obviously I've got the wrong place. Put me right. Fill us in. Tell us a bit more about who you are and how you came to be where you are today.
I call myself today, Wendy, a career transformation strategist working with predominantly business professionals, executives, corporate folk whose careers arrive at a critical juncture, I'd like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that critical juncture looks something. They're in their 40s and 50s, these people. And either the company they've worked for 15, 20, 30 years have made a decision that it might be time to move them on to other pastures because they want to bring fresh blood into their organisations, new ideas, tech-savvy people, the creatives, the innovatives, all those, and they're moving those people off. But a lot of these people, Wendy, believe they're just arriving at their peak.
Yes.
Their knowledge, their experience, their wisdom that they can share with the organisation and the people that are the next generations that are following them.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden the company decides, well, no, you belong on the scrap heap. A bit of a waste. So I work with these to see how we can repackage that knowledge and they can become consultants, coaches, advisors, mentors, authors, speakers,
Yes.
a range of things that they can potentially earn other income streams from. So that loss of a job or that movement on doesn't have to be the end. It can be a transformation into something new.
Yes. Yeah. But you're right, though, isn't it? That because so often, if you've been in a role for any length of time, and certainly when I came out of university, the expectation was that I would be a speech pathologist from the time I started work until the time I retired. And that was what my identity was. Are you finding that with the people that you're working with when a well-established job is no longer there, that there's an identity crisis?
That happens predominantly with men more so than women. I'm not saying it
Okay.
doesn't happen with women. There was a beautiful quote I came across many years ago. Women are themselves, men are their jobs.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so women can tend to be in a corp job, but they've still got their social networks, their friends, and that sort of stuff, their family
Okay.
dynamics. So they still retain a connection with who they are. But if a
Right.
male fully invests fully invest themselves in their career, they lose their job. They've lost more than their daily routine and their income and their power and their status. The question becomes an existential one. Who am I now and what am
Yes.
I here for?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and it is a tricky one. I mean, as I said, here I am as a woman, and I had that existential issue because, well, what did it mean for me when I was released from my role? But yes, exactly. Okay, so that's the sort of people that you work with, and you're working with both men and women, clearly. Those who are in that shift, do you find that those people that you work with, are they aiming to go to other corporate work, or are they then reviewing the situation, to quote Fagan?
There can be a number of scenarios. Some want to stay in the corporate life.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case, their employer, what they do, Wendy, and they send them off to a transition service company. They'll update their
Okay.
resume, polish up their interview skills,
Right.
help them with their latest job search strategies that are out in the marketplace, and they move on. But what I found when I was in corporate, a lot of males or executives or professionals of any orientation loses their job. The answer isn't simply to help them find the next one. They've experienced an emotional wound.
Yes,
They're
absolutely.
hurting.
Mm,
They need to release that. They need to express it in some
mm.
way. Those transition service organisations don't necessarily enable that. I identified that when I was back in corporate and I saw a number of my work colleagues lose their jobs,
Mm-hmm.
and they experienced a big emotional hit. Mental meltdown, all that sort of stuff. A lot of them they lost their job, and within 12 months, their family dynamics broke down. They may have got divorced because they just couldn't cope
Yes.
with the shame, the guilt of losing that title of breadwinner. So there's more to job loss than this,
Mm.
we've taken away your job.
It really is a grief journey. And I don't know that it's necessarily always seen in that light.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
They just say, oh, you've lost your job, find the next one.
Yeah. And particularly the age range that you're talking about. I mean, we're now talking about people who very often, particularly as you were saying, with the advent of all the automation and the AI stuff coming in. Well, once you pass 35, 40 tops, then people start looking at, well, you are up to date. I mean, particularly if you
Well,
still carry around a pen. Well, what do
yes.
you do with that?
So here you are, you send off a resume to another employer if you're looking for alternate work, and they sense that you're at late 40s, early 50s. The person who's looking at your resume might be in their late 20s, early 30s. They automatically look at you in your 50s and think, forget it. You're
Oh, hell,
tainted.
yes.
Yeah. So
It's
that
just, as you
works. Your age
say,
is working against you. Yeah,
yes. And as you point out, there's so much wisdom, there's so much lived experience. Now, okay, the mechanics of it, the environment may have shifted, but excuse me, but the wisdom underneath hasn't. Because very often it's understanding the way the marketplace is working, not necessarily the actual surface dressing, if you will, but you're looking at the parcel underneath the wrapping paper. And that is wisdom that comes from experience. Huh. That's
yeah.
been a
Even though the
fight
world's
line.
changing fast, Wendy, there's certain dynamics never change.
Yeah.
There's always going to be culture conflicts within an organisation. Certain people want to go in this direction, other people want to go somewhere else. There's always going to be the need for a leader who can inspire a company. Those dynamics don't shift, and the ability to bring different teams together and that sort of stuff. So, and that's the wisdom I'm talking about, that and the
Yeah.
knowledge base that goes out the door.
Yeah. Those people skills are invaluable. They really are. They're the oil that keeps everything working.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so I want to take you back in time for a minute. When did you first get the idea that writing was something that you quite enjoyed? But we all started the mechanics of it at roughly the same age. But did you do writing through school? Did you journal as a teenager? Tell us about your writing.
I think my interest in writing started happening when I was in the corporate world.
Okay.
I had a role as a risk management specialist. That would entail interviewing people about the risks in their part of the organisation.
Mhm.
I would then have to take those meeting notes and distill them down into some sort of report structure, and then would have to distill it and refine it again into a one-page summary for a board report. So I
Right.
had to go through these stages of iteration, taking data, turning it into knowledge, and turning it into wisdom.
Ooh,
Okay.
yes.
And that ability I've now translated into my writing, where I take data or stories and turn it into a knowledge or organize it into some sort of coherent framework and
Hmm.
then share it as wisdom with my podcast guests or through my writing from a book. So I've just taken that ability that I acquired in corporate and I use it today.
No skill is ever wasted, is it?
Absolutely not. And I say that to people, nothing is ever wasted. You just build new layers on top of it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, the number of times that in the past I've heard people say, I'm just a housewife or I'm just a stay-at-home mum. And I've gone, oh, who's in charge of the family budget? Me. Who's in charge of getting the children to wherever they need to go? Me. So we're looking at director of home budget, sort of finance manager at home. What about project manager in terms of getting all the children in the right place at the right time? Are we looking at all the shopping and coordination of who needs what food when? Yeah, well, that's project management as well. And are you involved in the education, the sort of homework stuff? Yeah, educator of the next generation. And suddenly they stop being just anything and realize the magnitude of all these skills that they're sitting on. Actually, those are marketable skills.
Well, I mean, I've got a client and she's got two young children and a career.
Yeah.
Now, so there's two careers happening,
Yes.
and she does a lot of delegating. She buys a robot vacuum cleaner, so she's delegated the vacuum cleaning to the robot.
Yeah.
Okay, her mother may come in and do some babysitting, so that's a level of delegation.
Yes.
She'll do online shopping, so it's delivered to her home. That's delegation. So there's career. People think a housewife is a diminished role. It's a career in itself that requires juggling
Yes.
children. You take your children to a supermarket and they run rampant unless you've actually controlled them.
Yes. Yeah. So many skills, isn't it, that we don't necessarily appreciate unless there's a dollar figure at the end of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, there's budgeting. As a housewife, there's budgeting, there's time management, there's
Mm-hmm.
delegation,
Mm-hmm.
there's a social aspect where
Yes.
you're communicating with other mothers, you're communicating with your children in a language where hopefully they follow some rules and structure.
And you're the
There's all
go
sorts
between
of
school and home, and I think, yeah, so many skills, so many skills. Yeah. So the writing, tell us a bit about the writing then, because you've got three books out.
Yes. First book was the Phoenix Career Principles, where I share some principles that I learned while in corporate about how to actually manage your career. Then there was
Mm-hmm.
Career by Design, where the central message was if you don't design your career, it'll be controlled by others. What
Yep.
they have planned for you may not necessarily be in your best interest, it'll always be in theirs. And
Absolutely.
then I wrote
Yes.
a short little booklet because people tell me we don't actually have time to read. So that became the Career Confidential. And I talk about the three key risks to a person's career: job loss, burnout, and the constant anxiety and stress that they're under worrying about that they're going to lose their job.
Yes. Yeah. And that doesn't help anybody.
No,
Certainly
the
impacts
stress,
the performance.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Um,
curious you say about the fact that people don't have time to read things. I'm sure you're familiar with the too long didn't read acronym.
no,
TLDR.
you'll have to
TLDR.
elaborate on.
Too long didn't read. An awful lot of social posts, if it's block and long form, you'll get comments at the bottom, TLDR, too long, didn't read, because people need that quick dopamine fix, basically. So there's a push amongst a lot of business writers now to write series of small books. I mean, I'm working with a gentleman at the moment who's creating a series called Learn Before You Land. So the idea is that you pick it up on one side of a transnational or transcontinental flight, and in the 3 hours it takes you to go from one side of the country to the other, actually it's 5 when it comes to Australia, but my point is that you've actually consumed the information and you've been learning on the flight. Now, if you happen to be in business class and you can get in the Wi-Fi and diddly-dar, that's fine. But for those of us who are in cattle class, it means that you can still have a productive flight because you've got enough information to feel as though you've got somewhere and you've taken it in within that time frame. So that's a very useful thing, and an awful lot of authors now, because of the publishing work I'm doing, an awful lot of the authors now are going to that short, sharp. If you've got a big book, split it into a series. So more chance of people will actually bother to read it and get past page 18, which I believe is the usual sticking point.
Yeah. The attitude I take is, what's the gist of your message?
Yes.
And then get that across. I've read
Absolutely.
books in the past, Wendy, where there's a very captivating title because that's what gets you to buy the book.
Yes.
Then you read the book and a chapter is about the title and the rest of it is just filler,
Yes.
right? Nowadays, the world is insisting, well, what's the message? What's the takeaway? And how
Yes.
do I apply this? That's
Yes.
all you need.
Yeah. Well, that precisely because that's when you can have it. So boom, boom, boom. You've got the 3 points: hook, body, conclusion, end of. So, yeah.
Yeah, a
Beautiful.
few years ago, Wendy, I spoke to a gentleman and he used to be a lawyer, left that world because he just didn't find the legal profession to his liking.
Mm-hmm.
And he started a book summary business where he would read the books, he would summarize it, and then had a membership where people would, because he realized that busy people don't have time to read.
Yes.
They've got a problem at the moment. They go in search of the answer. They'll pick up this summary. As they've got their answer, the book gets closed.
Yeah. Yep.
They're trying to solve a problem, not read your book.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a very good principle to hold on to, because both in the speaking and the writing world, the WIFM principle has to come first. What's in it for me from your audience's perspective? I was working with
it's a bit of a hit to our ego. They're not interested in me as an author. They're not
no,
interested in me as a speaker.
no.
They're interested in solving a problem in their world.
Yes. Well, I had a CEO come to me. She was about to pitch for some government funding. There was a big room of people. She had a not-for-profit, and she was talking about the way her business was run for Aboriginal people harvesting sandalwood from the natural perspective. And my first question was, well, what do the investors want to know about? She said, you mean, what am I going to tell them? I went, no, what do they want to know? Oh, and we completely flipped it on its head, because she'd come up with all these good reasons. I mean, their main thing is, are you a credible risk for their investment? That's all they want to know. The rest of it is pure fluff. It's interesting, it's nice, they'll probably forget it, but what they really need to know is, are you a credible risk to them for their investment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Once you got that answered, then you can go on to the pretty stuff. But yeah, it really is important, isn't it? And as you say, you take the ego element out of it, and it thinks, want to know about me at all? No, they don't. I just want to know, have you got the answer for them? Tick box, move on.
Exactly. Yeah. You're there to serve. You're not there to embellish or embellish yourself.
Exactly. Thank you very much for sharing that. Your career. Give us the chronology of those 3 books. When did they all come out?
So Phoenix Career Principles, they came out about 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Career by Design was about 2023. And then last year, I did the Career Confidential. So it's a lot of it. It's a culmination of stories from my own corporate journey, uh, stories from my coaching clients, and I distill lessons that I can share with others, because even though it might be someone's um, career story or journey, someone else will go through exactly the same dynamic, right? They'll lose their
Absolutely.
job. The way it's communicated is not always humanistic.
Yes.
So that adds another layer to their hurt. So
Exactly.
yeah, all those sort of dynamic. People investing themselves heavily in their work, and then only to find out that someone else has taken credit for what they've done. All
Yes.
those dynamics don't change from one decade to the next.
True. I mean, it's the
To
human
be honest,
condition, isn't it? Yeah.
exactly right. Yes.
Yes. And as you say, the fact that you've got stories that you can share, people will reading your work are going to go, uh, uh, yeah, I recognize that. I recognize that, because they're putting themselves in your story, the story that you've mentioned. And when you've got that level of recognition, ping, you have got your reader, your audience right where you need them, because they are then taking the wisdom, because they can put themselves in that story. Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Brilliant,
came
Tony.
across the concept. I mean, the concept of stories is not new, but when I was in corporate, in the initial phase of my career, Wendy, I worked in the financial and the accounting part of the organisation, and would attend a lot of um, speaking meetings and whatever. And the deputy CFO or a key finance person will get up and speak and talk about the performance numbers. And it would be this dry, monotone presentation that would just put you to sleep.
Yes, quite.
Or someone would read from their notes like a newsreader.
Yes.
And you're just beating your head up against a wall, right? Um, don't know how that happened, but anyway, and I'm just thinking that's not the way to present.
No, it is not. It is not.
You've got to bring them into a story. You've got to bring them into your world, and
There you go.
and share something meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone to speaking events after I left corporate. I attended a day's speaking events, and I remember a young man getting on the stage. He was the final speaker of the day. Got up on the speaker, and he said his opening words were, "Get out and stay out." So he's hit you with his message from the start. Get out of your comfort zone and stay out of your comfort zone if you want to succeed in today's world.
And
And
that would have
then
been a good
after
hook to go,
that,
what? Yeah.
yeah, and then after that, he can talk about his story that allowed him to arrive at that message.
Yes. Brilliant. And you had to wait
And
all the way
I've
till the end to get that one.
no, he's hit you with it, and then
Yeah,
you've
no, I
oh,
mean,
that's
he was the
curious. How
last
did he?
speaker. You had to wait all the
Yeah,
way through the events until you got to the last speaker. Yes.
okay. But by giving you the message up front,
Oh, yeah.
then you become curious. How did he arrive at that?
Yes. Yes. It's what in
And I
copywriting
have
is
a
known as called a bottom line on top.
right, okay,
So
and
what's the end point? Shove it right at the top. Everybody knows where they're going. Now you can see where we're going.
yeah, And now you've got their attention, haven't you, Wendy?
Exactly.
Okay. I remember, and I've attempted to apply that principle in some of my speeches. And in one of the speeches, I start off with, "Where do you think you're going? I haven't finished with you yet."
Nice.
Okay. So that's the overarching message.
Yeah.
And then I share the story of one Tuesday evening when I was in corporate. And at the time, I was working for the company's deputy CFO. And it's 6:30 in the evening. I've packed up my briefcase and walking down a corridor to go to the elevator. And then there was the words behind my shoulder, "Where do you think you're going? I haven't finished with you yet." And it was Doug, the company's CFO, wanting me to go back to my desk, do more work, not because the company needed it, because he was highly ambitious and he needed more information that he can impress others with the following day.
Oh, really?
Right. And not unsurprising when you're in the corporate world, but it was that time when I spent that additional hour in my little office where I realized I need to break this power hold that corporate life has over me where they think they can control my life.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Where you're not only in service of an employer, you're in service of someone else's ambitions.
And who's going to get the credit for all the extra work that you put in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Nice little
But
wake
all
up
these are
call at
stories.
6:30 of a night. Yeah. Well, exactly. And it's the stories that, as we said already, that they're the ones that people relate to and go, yeah, I've been there. Yeah. To your point, I was at a business meeting, well, conference, and there were two speakers back to back. One of them was an HR gentleman, and the other one was an actuary. And I'm looking at the on paper going, oh golly, the actuary is going to be boring. Quite the reverse. The actuary started off with having a slide up of him draped over a yellow Lamborghini. So it wasn't your classic girl draped over the sports car. It was him. And again, it was that pattern interrupt going, you weren't expecting an actuary to do something like that now, were you? But it's if you've got the figures to your fingertips, you know exactly where the company's going, you know whether you can afford the Lamborghini or not. And so it was that sort of thing that he brought stories in all the way through that were really, where did that come? It was completely left field, but it got your attention. The HR guy told stories, yes. And from my perspective, I'm sitting there going, that's a little close to breaching confidentiality, mate. Anybody who knows your company will know exactly who you're talking about. So that it was, for me, it was really helpful because it completely changed my perspective of being an actuary. The expectation was this was going to be dry and boring. He managed to flip it round. It was a brilliant pattern interrupt. Oh, absolutely.
But in the case of that gentleman, Wendy, I dare say he's probably got a speaker coach.
Quite probably.
He
Yes.
wouldn't have probably arrived at that of his own. I can
Yes.
guarantee he's either done some speaking training or
Yes.
hired a direct one-on-one coach.
Yes.
Because
Because
somewhere
it
along
is.
his history, he's delivered that boring speech.
Oh, yes. I mean, I have to say that I do know a number of other actuaries, and it would have been fun to see them try that.
Yeah.
Enough said. My expectations were completely blown out of the water, and I was so grateful. I was so grateful. I now meet an actuary with an open mind. So we've talked about your speaking, your writing rather. Tell us more about the speaking work that you do. How's that come about?
Um, I was in corporate. My manager was unwell at a certain time, and he was supposed to speak at a large one of those accounting congresses, and wasn't able to do it. So I got the gig
You were
and had to
voluntold?
explain. Basically, yeah, I had to fill the breach, and you can either step up to the mark, as that young gentleman said, or you can just curl up in a little fetal position and not do it. So
Mm.
I attended it and did quite well and had, 350 people in this mini auditorium.
Well
And I
done.
came away thinking from that, this isn't a bad, traumatic experience a lot of people make out speaking to be. The audience is not really gunning for you.
No, they're not.
Okay.
If anything, they're
Um,
thinking, I'm glad it's you up there, not me.
exactly. They're stuck in their own little concerns. They're not, so, and that sort of became the beginning of it. And then when I returned to corporate, I did a lot more training work around risk management in a room of 20, 30 people. So I got
Yes.
that speaking gig because you are the center of attention and people. I used to really enjoy when I was teaching and training, having students in the room and then writing down what you were saying. It just gave you a little ego boost because I've done that as a person, as a student in a room where
Hmm.
I've done taking a lot of notes, and it was good to see that in reverse. Flip the scenario where
Yes.
someone's actually listening to you and taking note.
Yes. Yes.
You're sort of thinking, okay, someone sees me as worthwhile.
Well, I mean, it's particularly with the risk management stuff because you get that wrong, you've got compliance issues that you can face legalities. If you get it wrong and you've got a major incident on your hand, oh, then it really becomes very critical that you do actually pay attention to the risk management training that you get, yeah, and apply it.
Well, when we went through the COVID was a risk management
Yes,
event.
yes,
You had to wear masks, you had to keep your distance, you had to do. It was a risk management.
yeah. What level of risk were you taking on? Was it critical? Was it minimal? Yeah. Oh, I won't remember those grids brilliantly. We had the fun of doing that. Obviously, within the National Health Service, was my background is in speech pathology, and that was something that we had to do every year. The annual risk assessment training, so we could tick that box and remember where we were at. Okay, so when you were in corporate, you had presentations to do, you had workshops to. Would you say they were workshops, or were you facilitating? How would you describe the training that you did?
Well, they're a combination of workshops or trainings where you are passing on your risk management knowledge to others so they could
Mm-hmm.
apply it in their part of the business,
Yep.
or you were facilitating a workshop of, say, senior executives where they couldn't identify and articulate their risks. So you were leading them through that exercise. So then you would
Right.
come up with 10 of their key risks. Risks essentially is about identifying what your objectives are in your part of the business. It might be to grow your revenue and customer base. So that sets the context.
Mm-hmm.
And then the risks are, well, what are all the things that could interfere with that?
Yes.
A competitor comes along and they develop a new product or service, and customers go over to the other side. You engage a supplier and they deliver inferior products or components, or they are delayed.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't deliver your products and services, people go elsewhere.
Yes.
Another risk is your employees become disengaged
Mm-hmm.
and they're not interested in the customer experience and they treat your customers poorly.
And your customers go to the other side. Oh, we've got a theme
Yeah,
here, haven't we? Yes.
yes.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
those events that I've just portrayed, they don't change. They were pertinent 20 years ago when I was in corporate, and they're still pertinent today.
Yes. Absolutely.
So for someone to look at me and saying, well, you're part of a bygone era, I'm saying, flip that. I've seen it all.
Yes.
I can tell you before you even consider going down this particular objective or strategy, this is what you're going to encounter.
Yes. Because at the bottom
Now,
of
what
all
I
of that is humanity. And that has not changed.
now I've chosen to leave that world behind, and what I'm
Mhm.
doing, in essence, is taking what I learned from a risk management perspective and put it in a career coaching methodology.
Yes.
You could lose your job tomorrow. Sorry, take a step back. You could be a high flying executive today, and for whatever reason, you could be on the scrap heap tomorrow.
Yes. Yep.
Are you ready for that risk? Do you have a backup contingency? Do you have an income reserve? Do you know what
Mm-hmm.
else you could do?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is often no, because they've been managing a career with achieving the next rung on the ladder, not
Yes.
with the expectation that a new leadership team comes in, they don't like you, they bring in a new person, and
Yep.
you're out the door.
Yes.
Speaking to a gentleman, this is a true story. November, December last year, I said, "Can you share your story of how you lost your job?" He goes, "Well, I worked in a company. This was an American-based company. There was 5 of us engineers. We were all in our 50s. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe technology caught up with you and AI."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
goes, no, that wasn't the reason. They brought in a new executive. He replaced us and brought 2 women in their mid-20s into the organisation who had a marketing background, didn't even have an engineering background. So even that sort of stuff still goes on, Wendy. Okay, now I can see you shaking your head, but I was equally in disbelief that you would get rid of 5 engineers and replace them with 2 marketing ladies. It's not even a swap.
No, it makes no sense at all from a marketing, from a business perspective. I won't say what
No,
it
but the
potentially
leader
could be.
obviously had his own agenda.
Yes, exactly. And
Okay.
it's not ours to ask the reason why. Anyway, so we've talked. So as far as your speaking stuff is concerned, you're now doing you're workshopping with clients. You're coaching. Do you do group work? Or do you do individual work? Tell us a bit about the work that you're doing at the moment.
I predominantly do individual because what happens, Wendy, is if someone loses their job or whatever, it can be a deeply personal experience. They're not necessarily going to open up in a group
Yes,
dynamic.
understood.
But one of the plans for 2026 is I'll be leading a networking community, or
Right.
that'd be an opportunity to speak and present. So that
Mm,
puts me up in the front of a group dynamic and potentially becomes a lead generating pathway for clients to
yes.
say, I I've heard this guy, I know him a little, I know a little bit about him, I've read his books, I like him, I trust him, becomes a pathway to do business. So that's the speaking angle. Because as you would know, videos, speaking, people can actually connect with the person, whereas the words on a written page don't have exactly the same level of connection. They're not seeing you, they're not feeling who
Yes.
you are as a person.
This is why I really highly recommend, and by the way, I'm talking to myself at this point, getting your books recorded, because there are some people who, I mean, obviously there are very visual people. If your books are using an awful lot of graphics, you've got diagrams and things, then yes, obviously the physical, the eye bit is important. But there are also people who listen. Their learning style is more on an auditory perspective than necessarily a visual. And if you then record your book audibly, let's go. Other platforms are available, but mostly people think about Audible. Then that is something that people can listen to. And if they have heard you speak, and they've also got your book in front of them, because some people actually like to do both. They like to have the book and they like to hear you speaking about it as well. It brings the book alive if you are a good narrator. Now, fair enough, if you're a little on the monotone side that we were speaking about earlier on, then no, you're not the best person to narrate your work. But there again, you would involve a coach on that front. But the thing is, I mean, I was part of a multidisciplinary, multi-author book. God, it's a couple of years ago now. We had 6 of the 22 authors were based in Perth. So we had a big book launch. And the ladies, we were all ladies, and we were reading from stage. So I volunteered to coach the 6 of us, well, 5 others, to how to read from stage, because I didn't want the old Muppet style of reading. And so what the feedback we got from the people who were buying the book, some of them had already purchased it and they brought their books with them to get them signed by the authors. The feedback was, I'm really going to enjoy reading the book now because I can hear your voice in my head as I'm reading it. And that is so powerful. So much more powerful than, as you say, just the written word. So much of it is gained from that interaction.
And still, I mean, I take your point, and I totally agree. But I would also say the book is still powerful because when I
Oh, it
read a
is.
book, I'm not just reading words on a page. What I'm trying to do, Wendy, is connect with the mindset of the author.
Yes.
Now, I read, say, material of, say, Warren Buffett or Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the reasons, Robert Kiyosaki, why I chose to write books. I remember in the 1980s, I would read a lot of property investment magazines in Australia where they would share strategies
Mm-hmm.
on where to buy a high value growth property for the future if you wanted to become a property investor. What were the best financing strategies, fixed interest, variable interest, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in this magazine, they would share those strategies, but they would always at the back end share stories where they would interview people in their 20s and 30s who'd gone out and bought investment properties.
Right.
And one of the questions that they would always ask is what motivated you and inspired you to go out and buy it? Because it's a big jump for a lot of people to go and buy a property.
Yes.
Nowadays, it's becoming even more difficult. And 80% of the time, 80-20 rule, they always said, I read a book. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor
Dad,
Dad,
poor dad. Yes.
where he says, you've got to get assets.
Yes.
You don't just work for an income, you get money working for you. That's the
Exactly.
message.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's
Thank
the
you.
power of the book. I was
Indeed.
speaking to a gentleman 2 weeks ago and I asked him, so he was working at a particular large organisation and he was in that vendor management where he would organise vendors to make sure they
Mm-hmm.
delivered things on time. But he was also building a network community where he was bringing connectors together where they'd introduce this person to that person and that would be a way that they would do business. So he was building this business on the side. It wasn't at a level where he could earn an income from today, but
Mm-hmm.
he's building it. So I said to him, I know a little bit about careers, and it's obviously that you've got a bit of an entrepreneurial vein here. Where did this come from? Because I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad is not about necessarily buying an asset and understanding the difference between an asset and liability. He's trying to step you to becoming more of an entrepreneur and less of an employee-minded person.
Yes. Absolutely. As you say, it's getting into the mindset of what is, because as we said earlier on about that, there are so many things about the human condition. If you can identify what the root is, it doesn't matter what the dress is, the dress code, if you like, it's still the same skeleton underneath. Yeah,
Exactly. My
beautiful.
coaching philosophy, as much as it's underpinned by risk management, I'm saying to my clients and my readers to thrive in today's employment world, you need to become entrepreneurial. That doesn't mean you start your own business, Wendy. Even if you're in employment life, you think like an entrepreneur.
Yes, yes,
You're there to add value.
yeah,
You understand the risks that they could get rid of you at any time. Therefore, you've got that worked out and you've got contingencies and backup plans. Now you're entrepreneurial. Okay.
absolutely. You
Not an
can be,
employee dependent on an employer to look
yes,
after you. And that's not the reason for their existence.
yes. And that's an important distinction, isn't it? Very,
Yeah.
very good. Okay. Tell us when you've got your written work, you've got the speaking stuff. So how do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
I'm a big believer in stories. I'm always on the lookout for stories.
Mm-hmm.
And people say to me, Tony, where are you getting these stories from? It's like, and I just can't fathom them. I said, look, you could be simply walking down a street. I was walking down the street 2 days ago, walked past a house where these carpenters are building a deck.
Mm-hmm.
And at the front, there was all these bits and pieces of wood, little bits of wood, and they were going to be chucked out. And it reminded me, so the employee type carpenter would take this piece of wood and they would throw them out. But guess
Mm-hmm.
what the entrepreneur type person would do? He would find the way to reuse them. And there's a story of a gentleman called Ollie many years ago in Switzerland or wherever he was from. He was a carpenter working on building sites and eventually didn't enjoy that work very much.
Mm-hmm.
And he would collect these little bits of wood and started making little toys from them. That gentleman eventually started a company called Lego.
Ah,
So can you see how from this little piece of wood that he collected, and then he started a factory making these toys that eventually burnt down, so he suffered an enormous setback. So he went from wood to plastics and it became Lego.
Lego in Denmark,
That's a
yes.
story of a career journey from a carpenter working as an employee to a guy who became an entrepreneur that's fundamentally changed the toy landscape. How many
Yes.
children have played Lego?
Yeah. Well,
Is that
there are
a powerful
generations now,
story?
aren't there? Yes.
Yeah. In
Yes.
2 minutes, I think it only took 2 minutes. I've just shared a powerful transformational story, have I
Yes.
not?
Exactly. Exactly. But that's it. You
Yeah.
see, and as you say, you're collecting these stories from all over because something that you see will trigger a more important, not important, but an existing story that you can then share. I'm absolutely with you. I spend quite a lot of time in airport lounges and people watching. And oh my, you can bring up some wonderful stories from what you're observing, particularly from the non-verbal perspective, which is one of the areas that I absolutely delight in. You can piece together the conversations that are going on, or rather the non-conversations that are going on, because they're all stuck in their screens. And yeah, that's another matter entirely. Talk for another
Yeah,
day.
your stories, you put it beautifully. Just watching people go about their daily lives
Yes,
is you'll come up with stories easily.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Just be awake to that. Just be awake to that.
Yeah, indeed,
There was a
indeed.
famous playwright named was Goethe, Goethe. They asked him once, well, where do you get your material to write your plays? I observe the people and the characters around me each day.
Yes,
They become characters that you slot into your play.
exactly, exactly. And the world is a very rich playground for all these wonderful characters if you have eyes to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony, as we're winding up now, have you got any wonderful words of wisdom for our audience?
Words of wisdom. So I would say if you feel like there's a book in you and a speaker, don't let that voice that always exists in the back of your mind come along and stop you from doing it. Because
Back to
the
your get
main
out and
game,
stay out, isn't it?
yes, because the main game isn't about writing the book or getting on the stage. The main game in life, and it's a biblical reference that I always draw out from, is don't hide your light under a bushel, which is your talent, your abilities, your knowledge. Don't hide it,
Mm-hmm.
share it,
Yes,
because someone needs to hear that lesson.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony, so much for spending time with us and sharing your from page to stage.
Pleasure. A pleasure.
For now, though, audience, bye from us.